Hey, Betsy here. Just thought I'd drop by and see how you were doing. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good. The sun has been out, the weather has been beautiful, and I'm really grateful for that. I've been able to get out, get some exercise, and just get some fresh air. That's always nice. Open up some windows. I love the fresh air. Yesterday, there was lots of pollen, like the white fluffy stuff in the air. We used to get that in Michigan too. There was a lot of it yesterday. It's funny how there are so many differences between Michigan and Oregon, and also so many similarities. So that's fun for me to discover. I like looking forward to that as the seasons continue to change, to get to see what there is and what there isn't. Anyways, we're going to jump back into Joseph's story this week. Last we left him, he had some dreams about how he was going to rule over his family, and his dad had made him this special jacket, the special color jacket that because he was his favorite son. His brothers were not so happy about that. They were quite upset about that, actually. And so upset, in fact, that one day when they were all out together, they decided it would be a great idea if they just killed their brother. I mean, what else could they possibly do? Seemed like a solution to them. It's not a good solution. Don't do that. But one of the brothers, luckily, he said, gosh, that's probably not such a great idea. He thought in his head. He didn't say that to all of them because he probably would have maybe met the same fate as what they were planning on for Joseph. And so instead he said, how about if we just sell him to be a slave? And so that's what they did. They sold Joseph as a slave. Then they did go back and they told their dad that he had been eaten by a ferocious animal. They brought his jacket back. It was covered in some animal's blood, and their dad was he was distraught. He was so upset. So Joseph, he ends up in Egypt working for one of Pharaoh's officials in his house. And so that's where Joseph ends up. That's where we're going to meet with him today. So while he's working in the house, the wife decides that she would like to commit adultery with Joseph. And Joseph said, no, I'm not going to do that. I will not betray my master in that way. I will not do that. And the wife was really upset. She was really mad because she didn't get her way. And so one day she plotted and she told the master, Pharaoh's official, that it was actually Joseph who tried to do that, and that was not her plan, but that Joseph was the one who wanted to commit adultery. And so this official was really angry because that's not what he wanted for his wife. He wanted for his wife to stay true to him. So Joseph ends up in jail. This guy has got the crazy stuff going on in his life, right? Like, that's some intense things. So that's where we find Joseph in our story today. He is in jail. We're going to be reading in Genesis 40, verses 5 to 23. I'm going to go ahead and read that for you now. So each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Here we go again with the dreams, except it's not Joseph dreaming this time. It's the people in jail with him. So when Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there's no one to interpret them." So remember last time we talked about Joseph, back during that time they took dreams they were very important. And so it was one of the ways that people prophesied. It was a way that God spoke to people. And so they took dreams very seriously. And it is actually still a way that God uses today to communicate with people. It's just something we don't talk about very often, and I don't think that it happens. Maybe it doesn't happen quite as often as it used to, but it is something that still happens. And so just remember, keep in mind that dreams are very important during this time. They take them very seriously. And so they're upset, they're sad because there's nobody to interpret their dreams. So let's go ahead and continue in verse 8. Then Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. Because Joseph knows that his God is a good God, and that God can interpret dreams. And so the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, Squeeze them into Pharaoh's cup and put the cup in his hand. This is what it means, Joseph said to him. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. And so there Joseph is, he's saying, I didn't want to leave the land of my father, but I was forced to. And now I'm forced into more situations that I don't like, but here I am. And so he's still doing God's work, though, by interpreting these dreams and by listening to God as he gives him the wisdom to know what these dreams mean. And then when the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Not as good as the first guy, right? Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled the chief baker. But just as Joseph said to him in his interpretation. So Joseph nailed it. He knew what he was talking about. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. And so Joseph had said, I will interpret your dream for me, but please remember me. So he's like, please do me. I'm doing this favor for you. I'm interpreting this dream for you so that you can understand and know. And it was a good dream. Good things were going to happen. A cupbearer back during that time was an important position. It was somebody who was very trusted by the king to keep them safe, because back during that time, people like to try to poison the leaders who they did not like. And one of the ways to do that is through their food and through their drink. And so it was important that they trust the person who is pouring their drink. And so the cupbearer was very important. And so the Pharaoh would have listened to this cupbearer because he was very close to him and he had a lot of influence. But the cupbearer forgot about him. And so Joseph, there he sits again. And so what do you do? Right? What's Joseph to do? Here he is in these circumstances. He's been hated by his brothers. He's been sold into slavery. He's now in jail. He was forgotten by somebody who he thought was a friend. And so here he is. He's in these circumstances and they're out of his control. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for him. But here's the thing, is that God, sometimes when we are in these circumstances, all we see are our circumstances. And it's hard for us to see past that. It's hard for us to see beyond that because it's so hard right now. Because it's uncomfortable, because we're just consumed by what we're feeling or by what we can see around us, what's present and right now. But God can take those circumstances and he can change them. He can use all of those things in big ways. God can see much further into the future. He knows what's going to happen. And he can use all of those things that you're experiencing in a way that we could never even fathom. Has that ever happened to you in your life before? I know that's happened to me. There have been times where I felt really beaten down and just broken inside and just kind of numb. But then he starts to rebuild. He started to rebuild my heart and my mind. And he started to remind me of just how loved I am by him. And he started doing that by showing me how much I am loved by people around me. There were some really specific people around me that he used because he knew the influence that they had for me and on my life. And so God is not just the God of now. He is the God of yesterday and the God of the future. He is with us through all times. And he is bigger than our circumstances that we have now, no matter how tough they are. And he can use all of those things to bring glory to his name, to help us love people better. I know that's one of the things that has come out of the time where I was just felt so beaten down and so broken inside. I love differently than I used to before, and more intentionally, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for that. And through that time, I actually learned some things that I wouldn't want to do, that I wouldn't want to ever have somebody else experience. And so we never know what God's going to do. You never know when he's going to use the things that you've experienced, and we don't know what he has planned for us in the future. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're in the middle of a circumstance where it feels difficult, and right now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a little bit antsy with being at home, and I adore my family and I'm so thankful for them. If I didn't have them here with me in my house, I would be going extra bonkers crazy. I would be talking to people like on the street as they walk by. They think I was some crazy person because I would just want to talk about them and hear about their life. Tell me about your relationship with Jesus. And those are all good things, but there's a better way to do it than surprising somebody from your front porch while they're walking by on the sidewalk. And so I'm so thankful, but I am really looking forward to when we can gather again and not have to be quite so cautious about doing that. And so I don't know where you are today. I don't know what it is that you need from God, but I'm going to be praying that he gives you the hope that you need. I know he does that for me, and I just pray and hope that he will do that for you if you're in the midst of something hard. All right, peace out. I will talk to you next week, and we will see what happens with Joseph. See ya.